Look at the black glass you carry in your pocket and tell me truly what you see when the light fades, and only the static reflection of your face remains there silent and motionless in the dark. Do you honestly believe that the image composed of millions of pixels and artificial lights is the total sum of your existence? Or have you already begun to feel the icy cold of a dissociation that separates your flesh from your profile? Before we dive into the abyss of Carl Jung and the way social media has hijacked your identity, I ask you to subscribe to this channel and leave your like, because what we are going to discuss today touches the deepest pain of the modern soul, which is the loss of the sense of self in a sea of appearances. If you feel that you are living only for the camera while your interior becomes a dry and forgotten dessert, this comment is your first step toward reclaiming your consciousness. Because here we do not speak only of technology, but of the survival of your essence against the veracity of the digital collective unconscious. The mask you wear to smile in a Sunday photograph is not an invention of Silicon Valley, but an archaic mechanism that Carl Jung called the persona, which is nothing more than the role we play to survive social interaction. Imagine the theater of ancient Greece where actors wore large wooden faces to project a fixed emotion to a distant audience and understand that your Instagram profile is exactly that carved piece of wood sculpted with filters and perfect angles. The fundamental problem we face in the year 2026 is not the existence of the mask itself, but the fact that we have glued this mask to our face with a glue so strong that we have forgotten how to breathe without it. Jung taught us that the persona is a functional necessity for social life. But when the individual begins to believe that they are the persona, a psychic tragedy occurs, where the ego dissolves into the expectations of others and the internal reality is left to die in a dark corner of the mind. Think of the story of Narcissus, who, by falling in love with his own image in the lake, ended up wasting away and dying because he could not embrace what he saw, since it was only a projection of light on the water. Today, the lake of Narcissus fits in the palm of your hand, and the TikTok algorithm works like a current that never stops feeding your hunger for external validation while your soul withers for lack of internal nourishment. The digital persona is no longer a protective shield for your inner self, but an autonomous entity that demands to be fed with your time, with your energy, and with your own truth, sacrificing your authenticity on the altar of engagement. Every like you receive works like a small dose of anesthesia that prevents you from feeling the cry for help coming from your unconscious, which watches horrified as you become a character of yourself. The dissociation we live now is a profound rupture where the subject looks in the mirror and no longer recognizes the skin and the wrinkles because their mind is accustomed to the sterile perfection of liquid crystal screens. Jung described the process of individuation as the journey to become who we truly are. But social networks are the exact opposite of that journey because they invite us to become who everyone else expects us to be. We are creating a legion of ghosts who walk through the physical world, while their real lives happen in a digital simulacrum where pain is hidden and vulnerability is treated as a weakness to be eliminated by beauty algorithms. This fragmentation of the psyche leads to a state of chronic anxiety, because the distance between the glorious persona and the miserable human reality becomes an impossible abyss to jump. What happens to everything you do not post, and to all the feelings of envy and hatred and sadness that do not fit into the colorful layout of your news feed? Carl Jung gave this the name of the shadow, and he warned us that the more brilliant and perfect our persona is, the denser and more dangerous our shadow becomes, growing in the dark of everything we repress. On social networks, the shadow is fed by cancellation and the judgment of others, and by the constant comparison that makes us feel insufficient while we look at the edited life of the next person. When you deny your shadow in favor of a flawless digital persona, you are only creating a monster that will one day emerge violently, whether through a deep depression or a nervous breakdown that no hashtag will be able to cure. The collective unconscious has now found a physical infrastructure in data servers and undersea cables, transforming archetypes into consumer trends and viral challenges that standardize human behavior to the level of automation. We are no longer individuals seeking totality, but nodes of a network that processes information and vomits prefabricated opinions that have not passed through the filter of individual reflection. or the suffering necessary for growth. Jung would say that we are possessed by a technological demon that speaks through our mouths and types through our fingers while our true consciousness sleeps a hypnotic sleep, induced by blue light. The search for group approval that was once restricted to our local tribe is now a global pressure of billions of people who watch us and judge us 24 hours a day. The inflation of the ego is the terminal disease of the sharing era, where small mundane successes are elevated to the status of divinity, transforming each user into a small clay god who demands constant worship. However, these gods are fragile and depend on Wi-Fi to exist, and when the connection falls, the feeling of emptiness is so unbearable that many feel they have ceased to exist completely. The modern human being fears silence and isolation because in those moments the persona falls, and they are forced to face their own psychic nakedness, which they no longer know how to handle or welcome. The cure for this dissociation is not in deleting social networks, but in reestablishing the dialogue between the ego and the unconscious, recognizing that the mask is only an accessory and not the essence. We need to learn to look into the abyss without becoming the abyss itself. And this requires a courage that the algorithm can never teach us, which is the courage to be imperfect and to be strange and to be misunderstood by the world. The journey back home is the path of integration, where we accept our shadow and embrace our pain as the fuel necessary for the true transformation of personality. Carl Jung invites us to withdraw the projections we cast upon celebrities and influencers, and to seek the light that shines within our own darkness, where the gold of the soul is hidden under layers of digital dust. Do not allow your life to become just a trail of data in a memory bank of a billionaire company that does not know your name. The final echo of this reflection must vibrate in the walls of your mind every time you feel the impulse to seek refuge in the screen, to flee from yourself, because the only place where peace resides is in the center of your own being. The digital persona is a useful tool, but a cruel master who enslaves the will and drains the vitality of those who do not know how to impose limits between what is public and what is sacred. I invite you now to close your eyes for a moment and breathe deeply, feeling the weight of your body and the beat of your heart, remembering that you are a creature of flesh and bone and mystery, and not a marketing product. If this dive into deep psychology made sense to you, share this thought with someone you feel is losing themselves in the labyrinth of appearances, and continue your search for individuation. Internal reality awaits you with the patience of an ancient mountain that is not shaken by the passing winds of virtual fashions or the ephemeral judgments of an invisible crowd. May your mask be light, and may your soul be heavy with meaning, and may you have the strength necessary to face your shadow with love and integrity. The future of humanity depends on our ability to remain human in a world that tries to transform us into machines of consumption and constant exhibitionism. Wake up from the digital dream and start writing your own story with the ink of your sweat and with the blood of your truth, because only what is real can truly set us free. Imagine for a second the thousands of years of evolution that produced your nervous system and your capacity for deep, symbolic thought, only to have it reduced to a series of swipes on a cold surface that provides no tactile feedback of the soul. We are living in a time where the psychic energy that should be used for the creation of culture and the strengthening of character is being harvested like a crop by entities that view your attention as a mere commodity to be sold. Jung spoke of the numinous experience, the encounter with the divine, or the overwhelming mystery of life. But how can one experience the numinous when the eyes are always downcast toward a glow that mimics the sun but provides no warmth? The dissociation is so complete that we have begun to curate our mourning and our joy according to what will garner the most digital sympathy, effectively turning our most sacred internal moments into a performance for a theater of strangers. This performative existence creates a secondary layer of the psyche that is constantly monitoring the primary layer, leading to a paralysis of action and a sterilization of the creative impulse. We no longer do things because they are good or because they are right or because they fulfill a deep internal need, but because they will look good in the digital mirror we have built around ourselves. This mirror is not made of silver, but of algorithms that prioritize the loudest and the most shallow and the most provocative aspects of the human condition, leaving the subtle and the profound and the quiet to starve in the shadows. The fragmentation of the self is not a metaphor, but a clinical reality, where the individual feels like a stranger in their own skin, because the digital avatar they have created has more social capital and more life than the breathing person. When you walk down the street and see everyone staring into their palms, you are witnessing a mass ritual of soul evacuation where the presence of the human spirit is being transferred into a digital cloud. This cloud is a new form of the collective unconscious, but it lacks the wisdom of the ancestors and the grounding of the earth, consisting instead of the chaotic and unintegrated impulses of a global population in a state of constant overstimulation. We are losing the ability to be alone, which is the prerequisite for all spiritual growth. Because the digital persona cannot exist in solitude, it requires the gaze of the other to confirm its existence. If there is no one to watch the story, does the story exist? Or does the person who lived it feel like a non-entity until the validation arrives in the form of a notification? To break this cycle, one must engage in a radical act of psychological rebellion, which is the reclamation of the private life and the cultivation of the secret self that no one else can see. Jung spent years in his tower at Ballingen engaging with the images of his own mind, without an audience, and it was there that he discovered the structures of the soul that we still study today. We must find our own Ballingen, our own space where the digital persona is stripped away, and we are left with nothing but the raw and unfiltered reality of our own thoughts and our own fears. Only in that space can the healing of the dissociation begin, as we slowly stitch back together the pieces of our identity that we have scattered across the internet like breadcrumbs for birds that will never be satisfied. The path forward is not back to a pre-technological age, but forward to a new level of consciousness, where we use the tool without becoming the tool ourselves. We must develop a psychic hygiene that involves the conscious withdrawal of our projections and the recognition that the digital world is a realm of shadows and symbols, rather than a replacement for the physical and the spiritual. By standing firm in our own center, we can navigate the storms of the digital collective unconscious without being swept away by the latest wave of hysteria or the latest trend of self-obliteration. This is the challenge of our era, to remain integrated and whole in a world that profits from our fragmentation and our fear of being forgotten by the machine. Take this moment to realize that you are the observer of your thoughts and not the thoughts themselves, and you are the user of the screen and not the content on the screen. The depth of your being is infinite, and it cannot be captured by a camera or measured by an engagement metric or categorized by a marketing profile. You are a living manifestation of a process that has been unfolding since the beginning of time, and your worth is inherent in your existence rather than in your popularity. As we conclude this journey into the depths of the digital persona and the Jungian soul, remember that the light you are looking for is not in the screen, but in the eye that sees the screen. Go forth and be real in a world of illusions, and find the courage to be the only version of yourself that matters, which is the one that exists when the phone is finally turned off.